Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with JAYONBOXING here giving you a personal prediction for Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. And as always, this is just my take. Of course, your predictions can be left down in the comments section below. I know a lot of you are going to have some. This is a very hotly contested fight from a fan perspective as well as hopefully in the ring. So we'd love to hear all those thoughts, bets, predictions, all that stuff down in the comments section below. And a little bit of fight info here. We have Errol Spence taking on Terence Crawford. This will be taking place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, airing live on SHOWTIME pay-per-view in the welterweight division, with every single piece of welterweight gold imaginable on the line. Well, it took us about half a decade or so just to get here and finally have this fight happen, but here we are. Might have taken a little longer than we'd have hoped, but nonetheless, the fight is here. The fight we've been waiting for all the marbles at 147 pounds, and for the legacy of both fighters involved. Two ultra-talented, undefeated American fighters that do nothing but win and collect belts, and now they face off. Something has to give, he said, likely jinxing the fight and creating a draw, but no. This has to settle it, right? We have to finally get the answer. Who is the best welterweight of this generation? But again, we have to ask, how does it go? Does Spence collect that final piece of the title puzzle, or will Crawford unify his second division? Let's break this one down. Starting with Spence here. With Spence, I would suggest when he's left, land the right. Now, what I mean by that is that Crawford is a switch hitter, and he likes to go both southpaw and orthodox. But I think a lot of times he ultimately kind of gets into that southpaw position because it's one that I think is probably just more natural for him. That being said, when he is in that position, you're going to want to make sure you're getting that right hand busy to do at least a couple of things for you. For one, it's a punch that works well against southpaws. Naturally, you're going to want to throw it. You're going to want to have a shot you can pretty comfortably connect with, one that might hurt him, and certainly one that kind of lines itself up from that position. Also, it might convince him to switch back to orthodox, which is a look that you're more familiar with if you're Spence. You haven't fought a great deal of southpaws. This is at least a way to potentially convince him to switch to that orthodox stance. At the very least, if not, again, you have that right hand you can land down the middle, and it's a shot that you throw pretty well, especially once you start putting your punches together, so it's certainly something you should get going. You also have a great left hook, but you can use that in a lot of ways as well to set that right hand up. For starters, of course, it's a shot that can score, and he'll be then looking to try and get out of the way of it, lining that right hand up. But at the very least, even if you're feinting with it or just kind of pawing with it, lines the right hand up in that southpaw stance and gives you a good chance of landing that shot. I would also say you must attack the body. Whether Crawford decides to be a boxer puncher or decides to come forward a bit more, the body attack must be in play here. If he elects to move, you need to cut off the ring and slow him down with those body blows. That's going to be something that saps the energy out of him, especially as an older fighter where maybe he's just not got the wind he once did anyway. If he's trying to come forward and be more assertive, those body blows might begin to neutralize that, sap some of his power, and kind of push him back, which allows for you to land the right hand we mentioned. In either case, that body attack can definitely help set up that kind of work for you that allows for you to get more going on later in the contest. The one thing I will say, of course, is you have to keep those hooks tight, though, or you're going to give the faster-handed Crawford too much time to counter up top, and he's already pretty good at that without getting any help. The last thing you want to do is kind of serve it up to him, so keep him tight, really nice and direct. Make sure you're attacking that body, and I think it'll set up the right hands up top and a lot of better work for you as the fight progresses. And as I sort of alluded to there, the final thing I'd say here is build into the fight. You're the slightly younger fighter, and you have had less fights, and as a result of that, you should have more in the reserves, more in the tank, so to speak. You don't need to come out guns blazing. You just want to build into the fight comfortably so that you're getting stronger as the rounds pass by. You want to get your reads. You want to kind of get a feel for what Crawford has to offer. Maybe take a shot, not intentionally, of course, but just realize what that power feels like before you really begin to assert yourself. Once you're doing that, you might be able to push Crawford back a bit more, perhaps in those straight lines, land some of those right hands, and once you get him cornered or against the ropes, landing some of those body blows on the inside that can really begin to sap some of his energy. Once you're attacking that body and putting your shots together that way, I think as the rounds progress, you'll have more and more success in this fight. But it begins by letting it happen organically as opposed to trying to force the issue and coming in perhaps too reckless or too aggressively against a counterpuncher. Now, switching over to the other champion here, for Crawford to win, I think you want to land something hurtful early. It's important that you kind of put a stamp on this fight if you're Crawford. I think it's something you want to do to kind of set the tempo and the texture, if you will, of this fight. Spence wants to set the tempo. He wants to select the sort of style of fight, if you will. That's just the way he tries to go about his business. You have to take that away by catching his attention early on and giving him something to think about. If you're able to do that, then you're in the driver's seat and you can start kind of picking your moments and deciding how this fight is going to be laid out. Landing that sweeping right hand, mixing in those powerful shots, that left hand especially. You can do this by landing something early and kind of keeping him on guard. If he's allowed to just step in and kind of get his fight going, as Crawford, you're going to have to dig deep a lot more and perhaps a lot quicker, and there's no real reason to do that. You want to set the tempo early by landing something hurtful and then dictating terms in this fight. I would also suggest keep it southpaw. Now, of course, you're a switch hitter. This doesn't mean you won't ever switch or that you might not be orthodox even to start the fight. You tend to start fights off from that kind of right-hand stance a lot of times, to be honest. But most of the time, it seems like your preferred stance is southpaw, and by default, you tend to revert back to it when you start to see your openings and get a read on your opponent. What's more, Spence has fought only 2 southpaws in his last 20 fights by my count. Could be wrong, I might have missed somebody, but even if I did, you're talking 3 out of his last 20 fights. It's not as though it's a look that he's very comfortable or familiar with, so you're going to want to take advantage of that. Give him a look he's not accustomed to seeing, and you might be able to land shots he's not accustomed to having to deal with. Once that's been established, again, from time to time, switching back to that right-handed stance makes sense because, again, you're then reverting back to something that he's going to have to readjust to, and you can switch that back and forth to your advantage. While it does make you open potentially to the right hand of Spence, and he does have a decent one, it also keeps your right hand close as well in that kind of sweeping motion that you like to throw it. If you can time him, including when he's trying to throw that right hand with that sweeping right hook, if you will, it's a shot that can land quickly as Spence is trying to come in, and you can have some really good success if you're tagging it with him often. And finally, I would argue, lead with the left, but you're quick enough that you can lead with that backhand. And again, I'm assuming most of the time in this fight, you're probably going to be in that southpaw position. Now, I think if you're Crawford, you're quick enough that you can land that lead backhand. And I think I say that as a backhand because I believe you probably will most of the time be in that southpaw stance. Again, could be wrong. I've been wrong several times before. This is, of course, the guy who picked Josue Vargas to beat Jose Cepeda. So what the hell do I know in the end? But I believe you will be southpaw most of the time. And if you're starting to get your read on Spence, I think it will be from that southpaw position where you're having a lot of success. And in that stance, of course, that backhand will be your left hand, but it's a shot I believe you can lead with because you're quick with it, you have good timing on it, and especially if Spence is trying to attack the body, it leaves that shot open upstairs, you can catch him off guard with it. However, you yourself can't make it too obvious. If you're getting the read on Spence and know he's trying to go to that body while you're going upstairs, you have to continue to sucker him in with that by making him try to go to the body, using kind of feints, camouflage the shot so it's harder for him to kind of dissect when it's happening. You can even jab before. It's kind of that dummy jab where you're just flicking it out there to kind of blind him with. Then go with that backhand. As I've mentioned, even that sweeping right hand as a kind of a fake or, again, a dummy shot can line up that backhand, but it is one that if you get the read on it, you get the timing on it, it's one I think you can have success with in this fight and potentially walk him into something meaningful in this contest. Now, in terms of my pick here, this is where I will basically anger about half of you or make half of you think that I don't know what I'm talking about. But in any event, I'm going with Terence Crawford in this one. Now, let me just get the bet hedging out of the way here. I know this one could definitely go either way. This is probably the best pick'em fight of the year. But I feel the speed and overall power difference, coupled with the very high-level skills that Crawford possesses, will pull this one off. I think both will be reasonably timid to start, making sense considering the magnitude of this fight, with Spence perhaps being the first to try and kind of up the tempo. That's his fight, but that might open him up to Crawford's counters. Early, I think Crawford stuns Spence, possibly with that right hand, and this allows him to begin taking over the fight in those middle frames. As the fight wears on, Spence will continue to try and attack, and he'll have some moments. He is a great fighter himself, but the fast and precise shots of Crawford will ultimately hurt and drop the American. Spence might beat the count, but he's stopped with that follow-up barrage, especially when that left hand starts finding its home, ultimately leading to Crawford's victory. Winner, Terence Crawford via late fight stoppage. Now, in terms of the betting odds here, we have Spence coming in at a very small underdog role at a plus 115, with Crawford coming in at a pretty minor favorite at a minus 145. To be fair, these odds really could have been anywhere. It's such a pick 'em fight, they almost don't matter. When you're looking at it from a value perspective, of course you want to kind of get the best odds you possibly can, but truthfully, you could make a reasonable argument for either guy winning, and I really couldn't argue with the odds all that much so long as they're relatively close. In this one, it really is just about the strength of your conviction in this pick. If you believe Spence is going to win pretty much at all, plus 115 is a decent line to lay. You're getting better than 1-to-1 odds. For an underdog, you're going to take that. For Crawford, if you're pretty damn confident, 145 still pretty decent, minus 145 that is. Again, a little bit older, a little bit of a smaller fighter as well, so you have to keep that into account, but still think that's a pretty decent line. It just depends on what you think is going to happen here. In terms of the over-under, surprise, surprise, I actually have the over-under here. Unlike most of my other videos, it's going to be set at 10.5 rounds, with the over coming in at a minus 275 and the under coming in at a plus 200. Personally, I think the value's in that under. I mean, no matter who you pick, them just finishing this fight before the cards makes a lot of sense. Now, again, these big profile fights tend to go the distance because you have high-level guys who are not looking to get finished. That said, with the build-up, with their styles, with their abilities, with their power, it's probably going to be a little bit earlier than that 10.5 mark, so that's where I find the value there in a pretty medium-sized bet. I think it's a decent bit of odds there, but in any event, those are your odds. And my prediction record as of this recording is 22-10 with 14 exact, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, so on and so forth. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB, and you can also follow me on Threads at JAYONBOXING, of course. You can email me at jayonboxing@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you there. And also be sure to check out jayonboxing.com for schedule results, betting odds, rankings, all that good stuff. And of course, look forward to my preview for this fight, as I will be dropping that on this channel shortly. I'd love it if you check that out as well. And as always, until next time.